the situation? There'll be people watching, and how can they participate in kirtan? So I think we'll just begin. Okay. Okay. Are you at all familiar with the Putana pastime? Zero, right? Okay, a little preamble um, for you in particular. I think most of the people who will be participating will have some idea. According to Vedic wisdom, literature, according to the Vedas, very rarely, which means specifically once in a day of Brahma, which means 4,327,000 solar years times 1,000. That's how long one yuga cycle is, and once every time there's a full yuga cycle, full day of Brahma, there's 1,000 of those yuga cycles in a night of equal duration. It's really rare when Krishna comes. And when he comes, according to Bhagavad Gita, there are three main functions: to protect the devotees, to restore principles of Dharma, and persons who are wicked, who are giving disturbance on earth by their wicked conduct, to curtail them if necessary, to destroy them. And aside from that, there's another, when Krishna appears in Vrindavan in particular, it's to nourish the natural love that those residents of Vrindavan have for him. And one of the chief in this pastime is his mother. God doesn't have a mother. He's the source of everyone and everything. But he appears as if the son of a mother and father, because there's a parental affection, a type of love that's the love that parents have for children in this world, and it exists in the spiritual world without any temporary things that take place in this world. So this is his first childhood pastime. It's a pastime that takes place when he's 6 days old. 6 days old. He's like really tiny. And one of the personalities, one of the chief personalities who Krishna came into this world to eliminate, was named Kamsa, who was the king. He was a really bad guy. And Kamsa had sent a demoness whose specialty was killing babies, and would kill them and then would eat them. She was not a nice lady either. That was her thing. It was her thing. So Kamsa sent her, that's Putana, to find Krishna and get him. So this visit is going to be discussing Krishna's exchange with his mother, Krishna's exchange with his father, Krishna's exchange with Putana. She doesn't just get killed. She doesn't just get freed from her sinful tendencies. She gets a position in the spiritual world because she came as mother. So that's the pastime. We'll be spending 16 classes discussing with lots of commentary. Okay, so we're ready to begin. Those of you that are attending remotely, thank you very much for participating. I've been looking forward to this for some time. During the Thanksgiving holiday, what better thing to do than absorb our thoughts and our minds and our inner contemplations on the mercy that Krishna shows not only to his devotees, but even those who approach him, even slightly with some affection. So what to speak of those who dedicate their lives. So we'll hear the pastime of Krishna's killing Putana. It occurs in Canto 10, Chapter 6. And I think a nice way to begin is to hear from Srila Prabhupada about the importance of hearing Krishna's pastimes. At the bottom, this is, in the next slide, they're taken from Krishna book, chapter 90, where Prabhupada is summarizing what's in Krishna book. This is just a cut and paste from his own writings. The transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, are so powerful that simply by hearing, reading, and memorizing this book, Krishna, one is sure to be transferred to the spiritual world, which is ordinarily very difficult to achieve. Isn't that a beautiful painting? Krishna's coming back from herding the cows and some calves up there in the front, and all the cowherd boys and the residents of Vrindavan are really eager to see Krishna, and Krishna is really eager to see them. Next paragraph, sentence. The description of the pastimes of Lord Krishna is so attractive that it automatically gives us an impetus to study repeatedly. And the more we study the pastimes of the Lord, the more we become attached to him. The one verse in Bhagavad Gita that Srila Prabhupada spoke about more often than any other verse is the first verse of chapter 7. And what we just read is Prabhupada saying the first part of the first verse of chapter 7. Maya sakta manak partha yogam yunjad vadashraya. So this is the sound vibration form of achieving that purpose. Another very beautiful painting of Krishna, surrounded by so many cows. And the cows, obviously, they love Krishna. And Krishna loves the cows. There's a nice description. Just very recently, all around the world, our Vaishnava community celebrated Gopastami. Gopastami is a celebration when Krishna just finished 5th year, turning into his 6th year. They had a 3-day festival because Krishna was going to herd the cows. And it was decided, although he's really little, think of a 5-year-old boy size, and the cows are really big. And Mother Yasoda was thinking, he likes to touch their horns, and we can't control this boy. And Nanda's brothers and the other elders of the community were saying, you know, Krishna likes the cows so much, he has to be with the cows. And when he goes this way, the cows go this way. And when he goes that way, the cows go that way. We can't get the cows to follow anyone other than if Krishna's there. It's just obvious we have to let him take care of the cows. So they had a festival. Krishna loves the cows. And the cows love Krishna. So we're spending time, chapter 6, canto 10, Krishna's killing of the Putana demon, as you saw in the first slide. And this evening, the plan is to get as far as the first verse. And I hope you'll appreciate hearing the various explanations there are of the previous life of Putana. There are different scriptural references that speak on Krishna's pastimes. One of them specifically speaks of Putana. It's Brahma Vaivarta Purana. Notice it's underlined that according to Brahma Vaivarta Purana, in her previous life, Putana was the sister, Ratnamala, the sister of Bali Maharaj. Now, most of you know who is Bali Maharaj, but in case you don't, Bali Maharaj is the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj. And if you don't know who Prahlad Maharaj, you can ask somebody afterwards. But Bali Maharaj was born in a Daitya or demon family, but he had the qualities of a perfected devotee. And he had a sister named Ratnamala. So one time, the demigods approached Lord Vishnu. Help! Bali Maharaj took over our kingdom, and we need you to protect us. So Vishnu said, very well, I'll appear on earth and help you. So he appeared as you see in the image here, a dwarf Brahmana. There's details, but for time's sake, we'll just show this image next to Bali Maharaj, because when he appeared before Bali to beg some charity from Bali, Brahmanas can beg charity from kings. His sister, at least in Brahma Vaivarta Purana, she was his sister. And it says there, as soon as Ratnamala set her eye on the Lord, she desired that he might become her son, wishing to suckle him out of maternal affection. She felt just seeing this beautiful little boy. And he spoke to her, saying, being obliged to her father, Bali Maharaj, who was a pure devotee, and understanding the heart of Ratnamala, because she didn't say anything, she was just feeling that. He promised her, he addressed her and promised her that whatever she was desiring at that moment would be fulfilled. And sure enough, it was fulfilled. In her next life, she became Putana. However, when Bali was surrendering 3 paces of land to Vamana, and with 2 paces of land he covered the whole universe, then Vamana said, where do I put my 3rd step? And Bali said, you can place it on my head. And then later, you gave me a promise, but 3 paces of land, and you didn't fulfill your promise, you're to be punished. He tied Bali in ropes like a criminal. And in the back, you can see there's his sister. She didn't like that. She wanted revenge. So she then thought, if you become my son, then not only will I feed you, I will kill you. So Brahma Vaivarta Purana says, according to the original benediction that Lord Vamana had offered, Ratnamala would have the opportunity to suckle him as her child. However, because her sentiments had now swung so violently to the opposite extreme, by exercise of his unlimited intelligence, Lord Vamana ingeniously supplied the solution by smoothly incorporating the suitable reactions to both diverse desires in one single event. She became Putana. To have these two, motherly affection and to try to kill him. Now that was Brahma Vaivarta Purana, and Garga Samhita also describes her previous life in this way. It's very similar. The main difference is, rather than identifying Ratnamala as the sister, she's identified as the daughter of Bali. Quite similar. But she also had this mother's love for Vamana as a son. It's similar events. Here's an interesting, kind of curious detail of consideration. There's Prahlada Maharaj, who, after the destruction of Hiranyakashipu, he becomes the king. We see over to our right or his left, that's Lord Brahma, who's placing a crown on Prahlada Maharaj's head. There's priests performing the yajna. Behind Lord Brahma, you see Lord Shiva. So all the devas were present for the coronation of Prahlad. Now, when Lord Nrsingadev killed Hiranyakashipu, he gave a benediction to Prahlad that never again would he personally kill any member of the succeeding generations of Prahlad Maharaja's dynasty. And he kept his word. And this word extended not only to his immediate family members, but those immediate family members in their next lives. So, according to this particular description, one of Bali Maharaja's sons was named Sahashika. Sahashika. So that means he's the grandson. Bali Maharaj is the grandson, and Sahashika is the great-grandson. And after Sahashika died, so that when Hiranyakashipu was present or Prahlad was present, that was long before Krishna's appearance. And in his next life, Sahashika became Dhenukasura. In the painting, you'll see the Dhenukasura, or conventionally known as the donkey or the ass demon, in the Talavan forest. And you see there's Balaram holding the hind legs of Dhenukasura, because Krishna made this pledge in the form of Lord Nrsingadev to not kill any of Prahlad's descendants or in their subsequent lives. So he had Balaram do it. He took the honor. In the lower left corner there you see Krishna in darkish form with a yellow dhoti. And there's all the coward boys, because they wanted tal fruits, and Dhenuka was keeping them away. Now, here's another detail. The other detail is, there's a question. If Krishna wouldn't kill Dhenuka personally, then why did he kill Putana? Because at least in this particular version, there's different versions. Putana was Danuka's sister. You with me? Have I lost anybody? Putana and Danuka were brother and sister. Now there's different versions that speak a little differently. You'll hear shortly. So if he wouldn't kill Danuka, why did he go ahead and kill Putana? And the reconciliation of that conflict is this one. According to strict rules of Vedic culture, the female child is not officially the same as in the dynasty, and for that reason, she was eligible to be killed by Krishna himself. Now, the killing of Putana wasn't like nasty or revenge or something. We're going to hear as we proceed, he wanted to deliver her. He wanted to fulfill the promise that was made to Ratnamala, but he wanted to free her from the contamination of malice towards him and then in turn towards others, because remember, her thing was finding little babies and killing them and eating them. She's not a nice lady. And she's getting, a lot of nasty contamination from that mindset and those behaviors. So Krishna wanted to free her. Now, why did Krishna want to free her? Well, he doesn't need a reason. But if you want a reason, she was previously the sister of Bali, who was his pure devotee. And he wanted to free her from any impurity. Not only free her from any impurity, so she's like clean, but give her a position of mother in the spiritual world. So the story, without knowing that intention of Krishna and the consequence for Putana, one might think, gosh, what kind of God are you worshiping here? When he's 6 days old, he's killing ladies. But he wanted to deliver her. It was so one more time, it's by the agency of there are different terms that are used, Lila Shakti, or his own spiritual potency. He brought her to him. No, if he wanted to not have this happen, she would not be able to find him, etc. Because he's all-powerful, supreme person. But he wanted to free her from that contamination. And he did. It was a little violent in between, but she had very wicked intentions. She wanted to kill him. And she had mystic powers. She was really good at it. Here's a little special note from Brahma Vaivarta Purana. Now, there are different sources. Let's step back. Especially for those who are a little bit new. Especially for those who are a little bit new. Our primary, the Sanskrit word for proof or the means of knowing something is pramana. Pramana. The bells and whistles word in English is epistemology. How do you know anything? The means of knowing something. So that in the Vedic texts say there are 3 principal ways that people use to know things, and 2 of them are fallible, and 1 of them is infallible. There's further expansions of those 3, but it's just packed down as 3. Sense perception, seeing is believing. Second is reason. People use their reason. We use it. Every day, all the time, with reason. I mean, I got in a car to get to here with reason. We had a good GPS system in the car, and it's a new car. I mean, car could break down, get a crash or something, but it's reasonable. Or the classic that's used in Vedic literature is there's a mountain, you see smoke hanging on the side of the mountain, so you can infer there's a fire on the mountain. It could be something else, but inference. So we use it all the time. Reason and logic to understand something. They're fallible without going into it in detail. And so what's the other option? The other option is hearing from a reliable source, an authoritative source. Something just happened in the news. The Dow went above 30,000. I was just curious. What's the significance of that? So I just clicked on a thing, and it was showing a digital. Every second, it was changing the number. The Dow was this, and then it was that, and then it was every minute, every second, it was changing. So how do I know? Well, it's a source. It's the Dow Stock Exchange calculation of what's happening each second. I don't know, but it's inference. It seems logical, and I take it. So I take it as, I take it as that's an authority that knows what's going on with Tao. We do stuff like that all the time. Your GPS tells you to turn left. So on some authority you accept, or if you're anyway, we use worldly authority all the time. Then what to speak of if the subject matter that you want is a transcendental authority, is a transcendental subject? So you go to a transcendental authority. So there are various transcendental authorities. Of them, the Srimad Bhagavatam is superlative. So in making this presentation, there are other authorities. Already you've seen two. Garga Samhita and Brahma Vivarta Purana. We haven't even gotten to the Bhagavatam yet. So for new people, it's like, well, wait a minute now. Because you're going to hear in a moment that something different than what Garga Samhita says. Garga Samhita says, Ratnamala was the sister, Ratnamala was the daughter. And now we're going to hear the Putana, not just Putana was the sister of Dhenukasura, but Putana is the sister of Kamsa. So there's variations. So for a new person, it's like, wait a minute, there's too many names already, and now you're giving me different facts. If it's this, okay. And if it's that, okay. But how can be this and that? I'm bewildered. Can you unbewilder me, please? So for newer people, this may be a little confusing to hear. And I'm going through it slowly to help a newer person process how facts, in the court of law, it's either black or it's white. Then facts are facts, and the court of law is interested in discerning facts. In spiritual topics, there can be, for example, different days of Brahma and different appearances of Krishna, and there's different details during different days of Brahma and different appearances of Krishna. There's the same theme of loving exchange between Krishna and his devotees, but some details are different because, using Prabhupada's expression, variety is the mother of enjoyment. Variety is the mother of enjoyment. Supposing you like some particular vegetable preparation, you don't just eat one vegetable preparation your whole life, every meal. There's variety, and you have a liking over here. So there's variety in Krishna's pastimes because variety is the mother of enjoyment. But there's essential loving exchange with his devotees and things that Krishna does for the non-devotees to elevate them and uplift them and improve them. And that there's details. So that's one explanation. I think that's sufficient for now. So please, if you're hearing facts that are a little contradictory, that's something to process it. I thought about this before making this presentation, but many of our devotees have been around for a while. They know the Putana story. Our kids know it backwards and forwards because they hear it. One family we were visiting during this last visit, I asked Pooja's daughter, you know Pooja? Pooja Singh, her friend, Pooja. She has a daughter, Nina. Nina. Nina's 9. So I asked Nina, what's your favorite pastime of Krishna? She said, Putana. So she wrote a poem. I asked her, would you write a poem that I could read during this presentation? She wrote a poem. That there are authoritative sources that describe this pastime with slight variation of fact, but the main theme is very consistent. So here we go. Putana was the sister of Kamsa. This is Brahma Vaivarta Purana. Now that person with the sword raised in the air, that's Kamsa. And when he heard on the wedding day of his sister, Devaki, along with some other sisters, they were married at the same time, that the 8th child of Devaki would kill him, he grabbed her hair, raised his sword, was ready to chop her head off right there on her wedding day. And her husband, new husband, Vasudeva, persuaded Kamsa, no. I mean, he did many things, but she's not going to kill you. It's the 8th child, and I'll give you every one of the children as soon as they're born. So he said, okay. Now, he didn't have to say okay because he's a demon, but it goes to show that the truthfulness of Vasudeva was renowned. When Vasudeva was born, the day he was born, from the sky, there were sounds of musical instruments by the demigods, kettle drums and other drums. And so he was given the name according to the names of those drums. Anakundundubi is one of the names of Vasudeva, celebrating here as a perfectly honest, virtuous man. So he was known like that, not just because of what happened when he was born. It was his character. When he said, I'll give you all my children, don't kill your sister or my wife. So here he is in a rage with the sword raised. And he made an arrangement. Yeah. for Putana, his sister, to go kill Krishna. And this Brahma Vaivarta Purana also says that the mystic powers that Putana had, she had a number of them. She could fly in the air. We'll hear some more as we go along. From the Bhagavatam, it also speaks. She could fly in the air. She could change shape. She could become big. She could become small. She had mystic powers. These are mystic powers. Maghima Siddhi, Mahima Siddhi, and so forth. And when she was sent by Kamsa to kill, she identified herself in the Vrindavan village as the wife of a Mathura Brahmin. And she was decorated very, very, very nicely. It's all describable here as we go along in the Bhagavatam. And after she was killed, according to Brahma Vaivarta Purana, a spaceship or a vimana came from the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan, to take her to the spiritual world. The description in Brahma Vaivarta Purana, it had 100 wheels and was totally jewel encrusted. 10,000 chamaras. Chamaras are, you know what a chamara is? It's hanging on the wall right next to the screen, that white yak tail fan. That's a chamara. There are 10,000 of those hanging from this chariot, and 10,000 mirrors. So she was taken to the spiritual world after Krishna killed her. So here's the scene prior to Putana's making her appearance in Vrindavan. Vasudeva made his promise to Kamsa, and he kept his word because he's a truthful man. And each child that was born was presented to Kamsa, that you see in the upper left. And on the lower right, his routine was he'd take the child by their ankles and smash the child on a rock. Not a nice man. And it was the 8th child, but his minister said, who knows? Maybe it'll be any one of them before the 8th, so he should kill them all. So he killed them all. And for the first 6 sons, because it was prophesied that the 8th son of Devaki would kill him, he killed the first 6. And son number 7 was Balaram. Balaram was in the womb of Devaki, and according to the Srimad Bhagavatam, before the 7th child was born, Krishna called his Yogamaya potency, the internal spiritual potency that arranges his pastimes for him, and he gave her some service. She was, yes, service, yes. And the first service was to transfer the child in the womb of Devaki to the womb of another wife of Vasudeva, because Vasudeva had more than one wife. Her name was Rohini. So Balaram became known as the son of Rohini, although she was also the 7th child of Devaki. And when the 8th child of Devaki was in the womb, the demigods came and offered their prayers. Beautiful chapter. And then he appeared. As you see on the left side, that's a prison house of Kamsa. And he showed his forearm form, the form of Lord Vishnu, with the symbols of Vishnu in his hand. They offered very elevated prayers, indicating their clear understanding of him as the Supreme Lord in various verses of praise. And then Krishna spoke to them. indicating a number of things. And right in front of them, with their eyes open, he transformed his form from this forearm form to a little child form. Now he's wearing a diaper, but he's just born. Anyway, he can wear a diaper. And he's got a peacock feather too. So, and here. That's okay. The plan was, out of fear of what Kamsa might do, Krishna was to be taken from the prison house. So an arrangement was made where the guards fell asleep, you see on the right side. They look drunk, but they're just asleep. And Nantashesh is the serpent behind Vasudeva, who is carrying little Krishna, to the other side of the river Jamuna. That's what we see in this slide on the left. It's midnight, and there's a storm. It's raining. There's some lightning in the sky. And as Vasudeva crosses the river Jamuna, he comes to the other side, where you see on the painting on the right, very nice painting, Krishna is placed by the side of Yashoda, and a female child, golden in color, is taken instead. And then he goes back to the prison house of Kamsa. The chains that were on him fell off, and the gate keeping the prison house closed swung open, and the guards fell asleep. So he went back and placed the female child. So he's aware the female child is not the eighth child of Devaki. But Kamsa didn't know that. So here's he looks a little chubby, and anyway, that's Vasudeva and Devaki. And on the right, that's Nanda and Yashoda. Nanda, and with these two boys, Krishna and Balaram. And of course, Krishna is the favorite herder of the cows, the cowherd boys. See, here's Ananda Vrindavan Champu speaking about Krishna's appearance. Ananda Vrindavan Champu is another literature. I'll describe a little bit because I think we have some time. Not much time. Ananda Vrindavan Champu is written by a devotee named Kavi Karnapur. And Kavi Karnapur lived around the time of Lord Chaitanya. And his spiritual master was one of the direct disciples of Lord Chaitanya, who wrote one of the first commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam from Lord Chaitanya's associates. And his disciple was Kavi Karnapur, who wrote about Krishna's pastimes also in a number of different ways. And one of them was this Ananda Vrindavan Champu. Champu is a particular type of literature, so I won't go into that right now. He writes, the Supreme Brahman, taking the form of a human being, descended on earth and assumed the mood of a village boy. Although he appeared like an ordinary human to the common people, Sri Krishna, who is famous as the beautiful form of supreme transcendence, has a completely pure spiritual body, manifesting along with his divine consort, he fully satisfied the minds of everyone. Of course, these are when he's a little older than just being born, but it's Krishna, the cowherd boy, because he appeared in the cowherd village of Vrindavan. And he's celebrated for these activities of loving the cows and the cows loving him and herding the cows and playing with his cowherd boyfriends. And this is what God does, and when he does what he wants to do. So now here's another painting. This shows when Kamsa came, hearing that the 8th child of Devaki was born, he came same routine. He grabbed the ankles of the child, raised the child in the air as if to smash the child on a rock again. And the girl, the female child, slipped from his hand, showed this form of Durga. That's what's in the painting. Kamsa is pretty astonished seeing this form. And she then speaks. Back in Mathura, King Kamsa had previously tried to kill the 8th child of Devaki, who appeared as the personification of Yogamaya. At that time, Yogamaya severely rebuked Kamsa, who in his previous life was called an Amy. And she informed him, in your previous life you were killed by Vishnu. You fool, what benefit will you get by killing me? The one who will kill you has already taken birth somewhere else. So hearing that from Durga, he had to take some action. So remembering his past enmity toward Lord Vishnu, because Ananda Vrindavan Champu says that Yogamaya informed him in his previous life he was Kalanemi, killed by Vishnu. So that cruel and wicked Kamsa then tactfully sent Putana Rakshasi to Vrindavan to kill baby Krishna. And it ends, there's a nice font. She was as foreboding as an evil planet. Now, most of the time, people don't even know what planets are influencing them, unless you're having a trouble with it. But evil planets can be very problematic for worldly people. Of course, Krishna is not influenced by evil planets. So then he started making his plan. This is a very old style painting. He brings his assembly demons together and his ministers and people to make his plan. Over on the right, that's an elephant. That's Kuvalyapida. And anyway, rather than identifying who's who, they're different personalities who he's making his plans to kill Krishna. And here's another one. The same. They're at his beck and call. There you see in Sanskrit. Does anybody read Sanskrit and say who's who up there? Say it again, without your mask on. Without your mask on. Yeah. Yeah. Pralambasura, then Putana, and then Janavarta. Look at those ears. Go ahead. Bakasura.
Well, no, I think. No, Bakasura is the next one. I missed the Aghasura.
Aghasura.
Then
Ooh.
Bakasura.
Then?
Dvivida.
Didvida.
Keshi.
Keshi. Oh, yeah, there's Keshi at the end. Then there's some letters at the bottom. Can you read at the bottom?
Can't see.
Chanur and Mushtika. Okay, so we got, assembly of demons.
Dhenuka, third one. Down.
Okay, good enough. Nice going, everybody. So he's making his plans. That's the idea. And meanwhile, Krishna's been born, and shortly after Krishna was born, there was time to pay taxes, because the system in Vedic culture is the king owns the land, and the people that do agriculture on the land, they give a portion of what they produce with their agriculture to the king as taxes to the king, the landholder model. So there's a nice painting of Nanda Maharaj, who's being carried in a palanquin, very elegant palanquin, and chief ministers and other people went with him. And he was, I'll just read what Ananda Vrindavan Champu says. Once, Brajaraj, the king of Braja, Nanda, having accepted the custom of ordinary people, followed the proper etiquette to protect his city and went to Mathura with other senior men to pay taxes to King Kamsa for their yearly milk production. The Yadus and their faithful servants accompanied him. So when he got to Mathura, that's the capital, so they're in the agricultural land surrounding the capital. And when he went to pay his taxes, he has there's details, but he has a close relative, so close that they're considered brothers, without going into the detail of how that's the case. They're not exactly brothers, but close relatives. They consider themselves as brothers. But so Vasudeva, knowing that Kamsa had already killed 6 children and was on the rampage to go after number 8, the thought was that the 7th child of Devaki was a miscarriage. That was the common understanding. She was pregnant and then she was no longer pregnant, so there wasn't a child. So Vasudeva knew Kamsa is wicked. Vasudeva knew Kamsa could do anything at any time. So Vasudeva didn't go to meet Nanda. He heard, but he didn't go to meet him until at night, because Nanda was there for some time. They had a camp. He went with one minister and met secretly with him. And they had some exchange. It's described in very nice detail in the Bhagavatam. They meet, and Vasudeva explains a little bit different than what the Bhagavatam says. Here's what Vasudeva says in Ananda Vrindavan Champu. Vasudeva, that's the father, explains how Kamsa had killed all of Devaki's children, and he would probably seek out Krishna. And therefore Nanda Maharaj should return to Vrindavan as soon as possible. That's Ananda Vrindavan Champu. And here's what the Bhagavatam says at the end of chapter 5, which comes just before chapter 6. Because the killing of babies was going on and had already become known, Nanda Maharaj was very much afraid for his newborn child. Thus, he appointed the local cowherd men to protect his home and child. That's when he went to go pay taxes. And in Prabhupada's purport, he was advised by Vasudeva, do not stay in this place for many days. It is better to return to Gokula, since I know that there may be some disturbances there. That's very indirect. It's not like what Ananda Vrindavan Champu is saying, Kamsa may want to go get Krishna. But their relationship is like brothers, and they're very affectionate towards one another. What Nanda said to Vasudeva and Vasudeva said to Nanda indicates in the 5th chapter, their affection is really sublime. And they're very socially sensitive, and it's like really nice, loving exchange between them. In the Bhagavatam, he just says there may be some disturbances. He doesn't say what, but because of the reputation of Vasudeva or Anandakandan Dubhi, he always speaks the truth. There must be some truth. I don't know what. And he's in anxiety. because he's the father and he's the protector of his citizens. So he wants to give protection to his son and to his citizens. So he's in anxiety. So he hurries back. And that's how chapter 6 begins. So tomorrow morning, we'll start the first verse of chapter 6. And it's already 7:30. So let's see if there's some comments or questions from anybody. Putana. Is there an online question? Go ahead. Take your mask away. Go ahead, you. We've had this experience. When he reads, it's a little difficult for me to follow. So he knows, give the microphone to someone else.
Shamakun Prabhu's question. Was the promise applicable to Prahlad's descendants and not to his previous generations, father and uncle?
How can he promise previous generations? If he was here, he'd probably have an answer to that question, but I don't know why he's asking that question.
Yes.
The promise seems to have been in successive generations, not previous.
There was a prelude to this question that I missed, Maharaj. We heard from you that Lord Nrsimhadev promised that he would not kill Prahlad's family members even in their next life. Hiranyakashipu was born as Ravana and he was personally killed by Lord Rama. Can these be reconciled?
Well, the descendants of Prahlad is not Hiranyakashipu in his next life. That's my understanding of what the promise was. Obviously, the Lord Nrsimhadev is not going to promise something that he's not going to do. That is, Hiranyakashipu in his next life becomes Ravana, and Ravana in his next life becomes Shishupal. He's not going to say, I won't kill them. That's not what his promise was. We have a question over here while this confusion is going on. Back there. Can you take your mask just for a second off and then back on it when you're done?
Yes. So my question is, like, are all the demons that Kamsa sent, like, forms of himself?
Are all the what?
Are all the demons that Kamsa sent, like, forms of himself?
Are all the demons forms of himself? No. They're individual jivas. Here's what Kamsa did. Take the microphone from her. What Kamsa did, he was a terrorist. So he went around conquering people. And he killed the kings. And he killed destroyed their entire army, left them standing alone and said, I'll give you a choice. Either you submit to me and help me in my business, or I'll kill you. So in this way, he accumulated some followers. And they were very loyal to him because he was really powerful. And they liked being powerful with somebody powerful. So they weren't expansions of him. They were other living entities that he just brought them into submission because he was so powerful. And they were obedient. They weren't expansions of him. Have we figured out the confusion yet?
So, a question from Shubhadra, Chaitanya Rasapur was writing. When Kamsa let Vasudeva and Devaki out of the prison after being admonished by Durga Devi, did Kamsa let Ugrasena, his father, out?
No. Well, I say no. We don't hear his letting him out, so I think we can assume he kept him because he's usurped the kingdom from Ugrasena. If he lets Ugrasena out, he's got trouble, so he's not going to invite trouble.
Next question is from Ratnavali from Atlanta. Want to know why Bali Maharaj, who is a devotee and good to everyone, took the kingdom of God, and all demigods are very unhappy with him.
He didn't take the kingdom of God. He had a battle with Indra, and he took over Indra's kingdom. Now, he was the king of the Daityas, and there's this dissension between the Daityas. So he was, and the demigods, he was performing that function of like the king of the Daityas. So they had this battle. He was doing his, that's, certainly he was in a compromise. Her question indicates he is in a very compromised position. Because if he's an exalted devotee, why is he going and conquering Indra, even if he's like the head of the wrong side? The Daitya group. That was his function, his duty. You can say he was doing his duty from the worldly point of view, but his heart was not like that. That's the transcendental point of view. And Vamana knew that. So Vamana drew the devotee side from him, and he let go of the other, the Daitya side. It is a little perplexing.
The next question is from Sanjay Patel Prabhu from Naperville. Hare Krishna Maharaj, I wanted to, I think he means to say, I wanted to understand the sequence for Vasudeva and Devaki.
The sequence?
Yeah, I know they were freed by Kamsa after Durga left. Did they stay in Mathura and
Yes.
they were not imprisoned?
I'll research that one. I'm not clear. They certainly stayed in Mathura. Now, the real question is, did they stay in Mathura in prison, or did they stay in Mathura not in prison? After the 8th child of Devaki was born, we find this in the Bhagavatam, there was a daughter. Daughter of Devaki was Subhadra, Krishna's younger sister, Subhadra. Now, whether that was, so whether they're in I'll research and see what I can come up with. And who's asking? Sanjay from Naperville. Okay.
Next is from Jyotirmaya. Lord Balaram is an expansion of Krishna. How can he kill Dhenukasura, since Lord Narasimhadev promised that he won't kill the descendants of Prahlad Maharaj?
Because the expansion is not the same as the one from whom the expansion comes.
From Ranga Devidasi. It is commonly understood that when Vishnu kills a demon, the demon gets liberation. Why did Kalanemi get another birth as Kamsa instead of getting liberated?
Because when Krishna kills demons, they get liberation. When other expansions of Krishna kill demons, not in Krishna's presence, they don't get liberation. So when Vishnu killed Kamanemi, he did not get liberation. But when Krishna killed Kamsa, he got liberation. Whoever is killed by Krishna, there's a... this is Rangadevi, yes? So if I remember, or you send me a little note, and I'll send you a document that explains what I just said. Those, in short, demons killed by Krishna get liberation. Demons killed by expansions of Krishna don't get liberation. And there's a document with scriptural reference to both.
The next is from Sundari Lila from Naperville. How Devaki took the calamities of killing her kids. How did she process? How did Devaki process the calamity of her children being killed?
One can only imagine. When Nanda, I invite her, take a look at the final verses of chapter 5. When Nanda comes and meets with Vasudeva, how they speak with one another, which will give you an indication of how Devaki took it. He speaks in such a way that he says, "Oh, how unfortunate." And providence is something that we cannot resist. We cannot overcome. We cannot do anything about it. We have to accept what providence arranges for us. But so you've been, by providential arrangement, you've had these calamities. But by the strength of your piety and your virtue, you're able to sustain yourself because you accept providential arrangements. Something like that. Not easy, even if you to say those nice things. But when there's virtue, it helps one to process horrific experiences. Certainly, mother's horrified, and she didn't have a lot of affection for her brother.
The next is another question from Shamakun Prabhu. Maharaj had mentioned that Krishna exercised his Lila Shakti to ensure Putana found him.
Yes.
Many sadhana bhaktas spend a lifetime of devotional service and don't get the benediction that Putana received. Is it that the intensity of Putana's wish to feed Krishna is something that we need to understand as an important takeaway from that pastime?
Well, probably. Krishna's causeless mercy doesn't need a cause. That's one thing. You know, we're accustomed to cause and effect things, and analysis of cause and effect. Krishna's causeless mercy doesn't need a cause. But the hint, the second point is, the hint is because her father or her brother was Bali, and Bali was the Lord's pure devotee, affection went to her because of her relation with Bali.
The next is from Hemnad. Krishna gives liberation to whoever he kills. In that case, Maharaj, what is the destination of Vishnu or Ram?
Demons killed by Vishnu.
What is the destination of Vishnu or Ram kills? Is there any difference? I think he says reference, but maybe he means difference. When Vishnu or Ram kill, is there a difference when they kill demons?
Yes, there's a difference. Now, I have, for maybe 5 years, and even recently, I have been unable to find a scriptural reference that says where they go after they're killed. It's very clear they don't enter the Brahmajyoti, because that's liberation, and then fall back down again or something like that. It's very clear. Rupa Goswami and Jiva Goswami both make it very clear. They don't enter the Brahmajyoti. But then there's this big stretch of time. There's a big stretch of time between when Hiranyakashipu is killed and then he becomes Ravana, and when Ravana is killed, he becomes Shishupal. Where do they go in between? There's no scriptural reference that indicates where they go, other than where they don't go.
Next is from Sri Radhika. I found the account of Ratnamala swinging between the two opposites, from being attracted to Vamana to wanting to kill him, interesting. We know that pure devotees act with equilibrium, but it is often observed that when our consciousness is steeped in materialism, that we swing between such extremes of emotions or feelings towards others.
Yes.
I'm trying to understand what is it, what is the quality of a devotee that leads him to act with equilibrium? Will you kindly comment?
Bhakti. Meaning, Krishna is to be pleased. So circumstances go this way, circumstances go that way. There's emotion. We're not numb. There's emotion, but the balance is everything. The ballast or the balance is Krishna is to be pleased. That's where the equilibrium comes. With all varieties of emotion. Okay.
What is the meaning of the name Putana?
I don't know. Etymology. I'll find out. Does anybody here know? I'll find out. That's the second I've got to find out. Putana, what was the other one? In the course of this, just... Huh?
Sanjay's question.
Which was... You'll let me know. Okay. So we have a question back here. We have a question back there.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for the lecture. So my question is like, when Krishna was a child,
When Krishna was... Bangsidari.
he killed many demons. So why not he killed Kamsa? Why he waited for some time? What does it indicate?
He was... Oh, that's easy. He wanted to be with his friends. He wanted to be with the Brijbasis.
He wanted to enjoy his childhood.
He wanted to go through his childhood pastimes and relish. It's two things simultaneously. He wants to experience varieties of loving exchange, and he wants to stimulate or nourish their love for him. So, a better question is, why did you leave Vrindavan at all? And it wasn't easy to get him to leave Vrindavan. It was a team effort.
He always wear a peacock feather on his head.
Yeah.
As it indicates.
He likes
it. Okay. Thank you.
Very attractive. Who wears a peacock feather anyway?
It's from from Amara. Hare Krishna Maharaj, how material desires go away when we hear Krishna Katha? How does it work? What is the effort from the hearer's side when one cannot even control the mind and focus properly?
My thoughts going to how do you catch three balls when people throw three balls you at the same time? She asked, separate the questions out, it makes it a little easier.
How material desires go away when we hear Krishna Katha?
Well,
How does it work?
material desire is Maya. It's illusory. Desire is natural for the soul. And when we turn our attention away from Krishna, then there's desire as if Krishna doesn't exist. And that's illusory desire or material desire. Or it's darkness. And you turn on the light and the darkness is dispelled. That's how it works. That is, misdirected desire becomes properly directed desire by the sound vibration of hearing the topics in relation to Krishna. Because that's our real identity and our real happiness and our real self. So the material desire subsides because light is on, or our real happiness, our real position becomes restored. That's how.
And the second part is, what is the effort from the hearer's side when one cannot even control the mind and focus properly?
Practice with faith. And whatever faith you have, that's how much faith you have. When you're cooking, you know this example, you have the stove, you have the pot, you have the water, you have the rice, and you have the salt. And you can hold the pot right next to the flame, or you can hold it an inch above the flame or 3 feet above the flame. The closer you are to the flame, the more quickly it's going to cook the rice. So attentiveness, however, we're covered and distracted and so forth, you have to work from that position, and you strive through practice to be more attentive to and devoted to the activity, hearing about Krishna, remembering Krishna, desiring to be in a pleasing mood towards Krishna, and that's our nature, and you practice like that through the hearing and chanting method, and that's the effort you make. That was the question. What effort do you make? And
Shamakunda Prabhu says, Putana means without virtue. Putana also means one who's purified.
okay. Without virtue, and one who is purified. Sounds like contradictory meanings. Shamkund, you better explain why we get two diametrically opposite meanings from the same word. Say them again. Without
virtue.
Without virtue.
And one who's purified. So actually, in Wikipedia gives the etymology. Broken as put means virtue, and na means no, devoid of virtue. Another explanation derives putana from puta, purifying, thus meaning she who purifies.
Okay. There we go. That's thank you for that. So, are we ready to conclude? One more online?
Yes.
2 more. Give the microphone to Shatarupa. Give the microphone to Shatarupa.
Radhika Kasturi Mataji is asking, can you let me know the references for Ramayana to make sure folklores are avoided?
To make sure what?
Folklores.
Are avoided? It's just read Valmiki Ramayana. You're on safe road. So, and if you hear something that's not from Valmiki Ramayana, then you have to pause a little bit and see, is it from some authorized Vaishnava, generally accepted, authentic version of Ramayana other than Valmiki Ramayana? And if you're not clear, then just, leave it to the side. That, to keep it simple. But just become familiar with Valmiki Ramayana. That'll take you a while.
And this is from Hemnath Prabhu. I have it done.
Already read it?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you doing all right? Is this like, okay?
I'm just connecting the dots. You're all helping me.
Okay. Connecting the dots. It's new. When it's new, it's a little hard to follow. Are you okay? You have something further? Your daughter has. Okay.
So my other question is, why did, when Krishna and Balaram were at the battlefield,
When Krishna and Balaram went into the battlefield? Which battlefield?
I think Kamsa invited Krishna to this.
That was the wrestling arena.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wrestling arena. Okay.
Why did Kamsa send wrestlers when even demons couldn't defeat them too?
Why didn't he do it himself instead of having wrestlers do? That's your question?
No, why did he send wrestlers? Though even really big demons couldn't defeat Krishna.
I couldn't.
Why did he send wrestlers when even big demons could not defeat?
Oh, well, these wrestlers were really heavy-duty guys. They were killer wrestlers. They weren't just wrestlers. I guess he had a lot of confidence in their ability to kill, even more so than the other ones. Even more so. Okay. Nice question. So tomorrow morning we'll start with text 1. There's text 1. Look at that. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.